especially in the faith. I feel like that's the biggest thing that like a lot of men have lost
Absolutely.
is not having a father, a spiritual father figure.
Because wisdom in and of itself is just the skill of learning how to live the good life.
Meeting my wife, getting married, having a kid, elevating myself to like, oh, now I'm a man. I almost see my faults to a greater degree.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Leave the 99. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, my good friend Joy Parisi. Joy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Brennan.
How you doing, man?
Doing good. Enjoying summer. Weather's starting to get nice, so yeah, it's been good.
Great. What have you been up to so far? Just working, or?
Yeah, just working. My wife and I in December welcomed our firstborn child to the world, so he's just been our pride and joy. So yeah, he's been our life, which is good.
Great. How's the first couple months been with having a new baby around?
He's been a good baby.
Yeah,
Sleeps very well. He's a joy, so no complaints.
So today we're going to be discussing our topic question, that is, what is the masculine heart? And so today we're just going to be looking at scripture, and we're going to kind of be breaking open the way a man is and why he is that way, to our most basic foundation. And yes, we hope to discover the mystery of who we really are as men. And so out of that, the first question I want to kind of bring to the table for the both of us is, Joey, when you were young, when you were a boy growing up, what were some of your kind of basic desires as a boy, like your interests, your passion, so to speak?
Yeah, so from just being a little boy, I just remember always wanting to do things like tinker or play with. I loved Legos. I would play thousands and thousands of hours at home, just up in the loft playing with Legos or being outside. Just like we had a lot of land when I was growing up, so we kind of had like 4-wheelers and different things like that I would do. So usually just like doing something. That was like the biggest thing for me. How about yourself?
Yeah, well, I didn't have 4-wheelers around when I was little, but I just going outside and throwing the football around with my friends or my dad, jumping in our pond a few times when we shouldn't have, just messing around a little bit as kids. And I remember specifically in school, and you honestly can see this now. It's like a lot of little boys. It's like you go to school and they sit down all day and everything, and then after school they're let out, and it's and they get into trouble. And something I kind of want to talk about in that is like, why do you think that is? What is it about young boys specifically? That kind of, there's just this wildness sort of, and like in our youth and in our core, in our being, and I want to kind of bring up why that is. And if you have any thoughts on that, maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, I think it plays into like the masculine genius in a sense, but it's showing itself within like the child. A good example would be what you were saying about the school with children, and especially young boys sitting down all day, kind of doing like monotonous tasks and having to subdue their energy more mentally. I think for little boys, it's very important for them to be hands-on doing something, and that task kind of being fluid, let's say, right? Yeah. So it's something they can do, but it's not the same task like monotonously. And I think it kind of comes back to the masculine urge to be a tiller of the land, right?
Yeah, like sort of like capable of just like you said, like tiller, like subduing it,
Yeah.
And like creating things out of the earth.
And I think that just comes out in its own way as a kid. It's not like a kid needs to develop a roadway or needs to build a house. This child's trying to just express themselves in that way, but for them it's playing because that's their age and maturity, and that's the way it should be. So I could go on a whole tangent of why having kids sit and be in front of screens and different things like this would be a detriment to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think And honestly, it's like that. You see in today's culture, having young boys sitting still in the classroom or behind the screen has led to a lot of high rates in anxiety, high rates in depression, high rates in ADHD.
That's the biggest one for me because I'm not an expert on that, but I know for a fact that majority of the cases that they probably say the kid has ADHD, if you put them on a farm,
oh my gosh,
or just anything like that. Farm's an easy example because we can all understand it.
Yep.
But just you put them in anything that they can just have a task and do. At the end of the day, they're tired and they're not going to be spazzing out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You put a kid in front of a screen, like it's not physically exhausting.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so
exactly.
That's
like, you know, I always think of like if a boy had a choice between driving a tractor or like writing a page essay, it's like which one do you think he's going to take? You know,
and there's a time and place for both of those, you know, as the maturity starts to just grow, you can kind of do both as a man, but as a child, like you don't have that control over yourself, and that's just the way it is, right? So it's a time to refine like the physical aspect of it. You know, in a sense, there's also a time for mental concentration, but again, it's hard when you're 8 to be having a life of mental
just be
discipline. You know, it's just we all can relate to it.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And so, sort of in that, it's like, you know, you have all these interests and kind of these passions of like, just like you said, like tinkering or like, you know, whether it was playing sports when you were young. Likewise, it's like what kind of as you got older, what kind of careers or sort of whether it be academic or sports or anything like that, like what kind of career ambitions, I guess you can say as well, did you have growing up, and how would you say that your interests from when you were a boy kind of influenced that?
Yeah, so I have a funny story from middle school. I had a couple good buddies that we would just hang out, and they'd always tell me like, "Oh, I'm gonna be in the NBA one day, Joey. Like I'm gonna be an NBA player." And I always was the cynical one. I'm like, that's not gonna happen. Like we're 5-foot white boys. Like it's like that's just not the probability. In Catholic school. Yeah, in Catholic school. So, I always, I should say, growing up, I was always with a family business that my dad was running. So with that was a lot of my business experience since I was like able to walk, right? Like our family was always there. It was like a family business. We had other employees, but we were always there working. So I think a lot of my ambitions came from that, and kind of that entrepreneurial mindset a little bit, because I've always wanted to do my own thing, per se. Like right now, I'm still within that family business, but I'm always looking to like different things to do. So I would definitely say that environment of working, you know, a real job. I would be a kid still, like I would fall asleep in the shell, like different things like that. But yeah, definitely that work experience since I can remember, I was there. Yeah. So that was a big formator in my like.
How long did your dad, when you were born, like what did your dad do? I guess, for like, because he started his family, like the family business in
01, and I was born in 03. 03. Okay. So ever since I could remember, like that was it, you know. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So just talking about that, your family sort of history and your kind of business entrepreneurship sort of mindset, what would you say are like the kind of main, I guess, inspirations to that, and role models, whether it be your dad or any other family members or any role models that you had growing up? What about them sort of made you interested in that sort of field?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it's like kind of what I knew, right? I was comfortable in it, whether for good or for bad. I was always comfortable in the space of work. Growing up, obviously, you don't ever want to like be at work all day while your friends are hanging out, but it was kind of like instilled into me. My grandfather, he's 87, I think, right now, and he still goes into a tailor shop every day that he owns and like works. And he passed it on to my dad, and my dad passed it on to me. We just like Italian and immigrant family. Hard work is very important. So I would just say those two role models, my dad and my grandfather, just always going in every day, working their balls off, really. You know, they had to pay the bills. My grandfather came from really nothing, came to the States, and he had a trade of tailoring, and that's what he, did. So just hearing those stories, it just makes you stop and be like, okay, like that's what it takes, That would be the inspiration. Did you have anybody like that in like your career or business or like what you want to do?
So, well, what I hope to do is this. But my dad is a nephrology doctor and everything, and it's funny. I initially going into college, I wanted to be a bio major, and like I think I decided that maybe my junior year of high school, and then I took AP biology my senior, and I was like, no.
Shout out to Miss Frick.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, I was always interested in the science. I always loved science, but my dad is also very analytical, and I honestly would say my sister is more like my dad in that way. Someone else that I would also say that I definitely put as a role model in my life is Mark D'Angelo, which I know you know very well. I met Mark when I was going into my sophomore year of high school. I think it was the summer. I think I just gotten done with my freshman year of high school, and I think the summer had just started. And at the time he was 26, and he was coming back home from Tampa just to stay and be with his parents for a while. And there was something in him, and maybe it was the Italian intensity, but there was just something in him that I saw that I was just like that's the kind of man I want to be like. I want to be passionate in my faith, but just I want to be able to do everything I can with 100%, like of my intention and my intensity and everything like that. And so he as a person, especially as a younger person that I kind of can relate to more. He's still older than me, but I can definitely relate to him a little bit more. Just with that sort of drive that we both have, that we share a lot of relatability in that.
Yeah, there's something to role models, right? Mm-hmm. For men especially, and for ladies, but for us to be relating to role models, like seeing that example of someone, especially in the faith. I feel like that's the biggest thing that a lot of men have lost.
Absolutely.
Is not having a spiritual father figure.
Yeah.
There's something to that.
Yeah, because needed. you can have a father in a household who's present, but
and can teach you the
and
world
exactly
the world wisdom
and he's kind of like the mirror of the world to the son. It's like the son goes to school and he goes home and he stays with his mom, and then when he sees his dad come back in, it's like it's part the world is coming in with him.
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
sense,
it's a great point.
Yeah, exactly. The work and everything, the responsibility that he has is kind of like. I remember sometimes I see my dad walk in like 8 p.m. after a hard day's work, and you could just feel the weight of the world is on his shoulders. Not because the weight of the world actually was, but his work and the responsibility he entails that's real life, especially as a man, to take responsibility. So yeah, that was definitely the biggest. I think that's definitely a huge thing because. And if you don't have any spiritual intelligibility to that and sort of an ordering of that, you can't truly be wise as a man. Mm-hmm. Because wisdom in and of itself is just the skill of learning how to live the good life. And who taught us how to live the good life? Christ.
Yeah, Jesus.
So to go off of that, sort of switching gears here, back to our topic, when would you say you attained manhood? And if there's a moment that you can kind of pick out from your life, could you try and elaborate on that? And if there is, why was that moment so significant?
Yeah, so I don't think there was a moment for me, right? And I wouldn't say right now I've attained manhood, right? Mm-hmm. I think that would be a hard thing to grasp myself personally. Obviously, I've seen my masculine self grow over, especially the past 2-3 years of meeting my wife, getting married, having a kid. Those things really hone in. But to me, I would think that those things, instead of like elevating myself to like, oh, now I'm a man, I almost see my faults to a greater degree. And I think that might be
why is that?
Yeah, I think we can get into that more. But yeah, just to continue a little bit more, that seeing your faults is kind of a way of maturing in your masculinity. And yeah, what do you think about that? You have any thoughts on that point?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with what you're saying. You know, I'm 19 years old and I still got a long ways away, but
yeah, we're young, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, you've accomplished a lot of what a man hopes to accomplish when he's 28.
Yeah.
You know, and you're in a very like exciting and interesting sort of situation where you have like you're working hard and you have a really good family business going, and you have a wife and you have a kid now, and I know you hope to have more soon. And I guess just like, you know, when you see older, like young men who are older than you that are still trying to figure things out, you know, maybe 26, 27, no wife, no kids or anything like that, just living independently mostly, like have their career and stuff like that, but don't have everything that they necessarily want. Can you kind of speak to how maybe, and obviously no man is the same, but sort of how they can look and try to be a little bit more conscious to what they desire, and if they desire a wife and kids, it's like how do they go about doing that as when they're older?
Yeah, just from my experience, especially being in college, I was always saddened when I saw like almost I would consider them boys in college, really. That they'd have this lifestyle of just like constant, just like self gratuity, right? They always wanted to just fulfill their desires. And I was always saddened by that. I know a lot of people, especially in like the Catholic community, that would kind of just be like scoff at them. I never had that mindset. I was always I kind of had empathy towards them because I consider myself in a very blessed and fortunate position, like very fortunate, because not many people nowadays have two parents together that love each other, who do a lot of things for, you know, who do a lot of things for me. And I realize that, and I see the effects that it's had. So now my mentality is, because of those blessings I had, it's my responsibility to provide those for those I can provide it for, right? So my wife, my kid, future kids, if they God blesses us with them. So older, as I was going there, I was in a fortunate position. So with that, I was fortunate enough to have the wisdom of the church be given to me and provided for me. Started with like my local community. A big part of where I learned a lot of things about the faith was like podcasts like these, like Pints with Aquinas was huge for me. Just learning different people and learning like all the different teachings the churches has to offer and the practical application for those, right? So for a man that's striving, who has the intent, you know, wants to get married, kind of settle down, have his career, but kind of have something apart from that he can work towards as well. I would just say follow the wisdom of the church, right? Stop sinning to the best of your ability. Go to the sacraments, at least Mass once a week. I need to be better at going to Mass more than once a week. But if you can make it more, it's great. Going to confession, I would say once a month would be like really good. That's about where I stand. I might fall a little bit farther than that, but confession's so important, because that's like you get grace from all the sacraments, obviously from the Eucharist, but confession, it's not just a return to grace. You know, God is giving you more graces to avoid the sin more and more every time you go to confession.
You're good.
Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah, so God's giving you the grace each time you go to confession to just be holier and holier. He wants just to enter into you more and more. So that would be like stop sinning, follow the sacraments, get involved with some good groups, find a good group of guys that aren't bringing you down, right? Usually a good rule of thumb, who's building you up. Usually a good rule of thumb is find a group of people that you look up to. That's always the thing that men will say to each other. Always try to be around people that you would like to be like. Don't be around people that are looking up to you. First, it's probably good for your humility to see people that are doing better than you,
Yeah.
especially spiritually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my kind of few points I would make that I would really say grounded me.
Also to add on what you're saying, I think a lot of men expect that that God is just like, that they have to keep their heads on a swivel, sort of like all the time. Like, oh, like is this the right girl? Is this the right girl? Is this the right girl? And they're always like, God, like if I'm not paying attention to God's gonna smite me and I'm gonna be lonely forever. I find that, especially in my age group, I find that a lot. And what would you say to the man who he's older and he's staying close to the sacraments? Yeah. He's, doing all these things, and he has been waiting.
Yeah.
And that woman, or that opportunity to pursue sort of a relationship with that woman hasn't come by yet.
Yes, that's a great question. That's the tricky thing, right? I don't really, I can't completely relate to that, because I was very fortunate to have the things line up for this path I'm on right now, my vocation. But if I can offer just my own advices to the best of my ability, I would say prayer. First thing, be grounded in prayer. It's hard. Prayer is so hard. I don't think people speak to that enough. Like, prayer is the foundation of our faith, but it's also one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just trying to get that down, and you have to let the Lord work. I think we get too wrapped up in how we can try to attain something, but at the end of the day, like, I've realized this now, that like my wife that I have is not much of my own doing. Like, sure, I did I was like, following the wisdom of the faith, like I said, but like a lot of things just lined up to where, like, okay, thank you, Lord, right? Like, that's kind of the way it is. So you kind of just have to like let go.
You constantly said yes.
Yeah, and that's you let go. The Lord will bring you what He wants to bring you, not what you want to bring yourself, or what you want Him to bring you. Right? You have to let the Lord bring it to yourself, and you have to realize that and accept that through prayer.
I think the biggest thing that a lot of, like, sort of those men who desire good things, having a wife and kids and everything, having a family, that's beautiful. It's great. Something that I definitely desire, and I really hope that happens one day, someday soon. But the thing I think a lot of young men get wrapped up on is they think that, and that's what I was kind of saying this earlier, is like they kind of expect this woman to sort of just appear out of nowhere, and they don't look at themselves and saying, just as you say all the time, be the man that you want your son to become.
Yeah. My favorite quote.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's I
take that one as my own. I don't know who it's from, but I attribute that to myself.
Well, it's because it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And a lot of men do a lot of self-pity and be like, why has no woman,
there's no one out there.
Exactly.
So much of this stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, well, you haven't looked at yourself, and it's like, you seriously have to ask yourself, if you were a woman and came across you right now in this moment, what would your opinion of yourself be? Like, would you think, oh, this guy like loves God very much. If he loves God, he must love his family, and if he loves his family, he's gonna love me well. So, and those are three basic things that you have to continuously learn how to do, because not everyone's perfect, and so we all try to love God as to the best of our abilities every day.
Another thing that I would like to add is try to like I said, try to let go, and then when things come your way, at least for me, when these things came my way, a few years back with my wife, things would just happen, and you're like, okay, God's moving, but it does take a little bit extra effort than you're comfortable with.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, there's certain times you're like, oh, do I have to get her number? Like, this is kind of hard, right? Yeah. But it's like, you know what? The Lord's put it there, and he wants you to have it. He just wants you to accept it, right?
Yeah.
And just reach out, you kind of get to be uncomfortable sometimes for great things to happen. So yeah, there's moments where you're going to be very uncomfortable, and it's got to get over it, and it's going to be okay. Worst thing is that you keep living life like you are, and it's just a little blip in the past, you know what I mean? So that's the worst. The best case is you're married with a little baby, you know what I mean? So it's like...
You gotta weigh the two options. It's like a real man makes decisions, and so you have to be able to do that. Just like you said, with the wisdom of the church.
Yeah.
And
So much wisdom there.
yeah, exactly.
And Jesus,
Of course.
as the ultimate male role model.
Of course.
Reading the gospel, seeing who he was, who the man he was, what he did for his bride,
Mm-hmm.
dying on the cross, just like contemplating that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot to learn from it.
Yes. Well, next we're going to open up the scriptures. We're specifically going to go to Genesis 1, verse 30 through verse 26, through 30. So, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the creation story. Just give me a little minute. And Joe, would you please read for us?
Yeah.
Verse 26 through 30.
Yeah. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so.
So we're kind of just going to unpack what that Bible verse means, especially going back to sort of our first question of sort of the desires of boyhood. In that passage specifically, God instructs man, Adam, at the time, to be fruitful and multiply, and these are the two specific things that we're going to hone in on right now, is to subdue the earth and to fill it. Something that really has come to my revelation, and it's kind of like obvious when you kind of actually think about it for the first time, is like the whole earth is completely unexplored when Adam is created. And so within that, God plants in us, in our very being, especially in men, to go out and go on adventure, to explore all these mountain ranges across the earth, all these seas, these oceans, all unexplored. There's so much to see, so much to know about. And it's so beautiful in the way that God, it's like we constantly chase after his creation, because his creation reflects himself, and it's good, just like he says later on in the text. And so these sort of desires that especially young boys have, in a sense, it's almost like every little boy is like a little Adam in a way, and saying that there's this whole world out there that you've never seen before, and there's something in me that's like, I gotta go find out what's going on, and which is why it's like young boys need to be out and exploring, doing just that.
And learning and falling
Exactly.
and realizing, I shouldn't do that again. And
Exactly.
then going off and finding something else you can learn from. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, and the second part of that is subduing the earth, and in other words, taming the earth. And so, we find that with, whether it be farming or like, sort of, working the land, or even just trying to discover how the natural world works. We have the field of science, and we are interested on all these things, how animals, conduct themselves with each other as well as their environment. There's such beauty in that, in God's creation. And so there's these seeds that have been planted in young men from the time we're born, of we have to go out and we have to explore. And I think specifically for men, it's like there's something, I guess I just named it, it's very attractive, because every man wants to be great every man wants to be great. And what is greatness?
Mm.
I think every man strives to answer that question for himself. How do I be great? What is greatness for me? And obviously, the best example we have of that is Christ, the greatness of Christ. He was the most masculine man who has ever lived and will ever live, ever. He sacrificed for others. He mastered his whole self, everything, his desires, and he completely conformed his will to God. He was obedient to God unto death. And so, obviously, Christ is the main male role model for all of us. And I think that's especially important to introduce that to a young boy, because if he has all these desires bottled up in him because God planted that in him, and those are good desires. But if you don't have an ordered goal of how to conduct those desires, you get into a very disordered reality as a man, and you become distant from your relatives. You become distant from yourself in a way. You don't know. You get into a place where you don't really know who you are. You don't know yourself. I remember specifically I felt like that in middle school because I was learning who I was, and I was also learning who I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a lot scarier to learn who I wasn't than who I actually was. And we can kind of relate that as well into the sort of fear of learning who we're not. There's a lack of meaning in a lot of young men nowadays. And I think the biggest reason for that is because a lot of young men haven't been given an opportunity to actually give themselves to something. Young men especially, they want to give their lives to something. You know, whether that be the military, it's young men who are going and doing these things, you know. And, you know, they want to give their whole being to something that's higher than them. There's this innate desire in ourselves for that. And we obviously see that planted in Genesis there. And so, you know, why is it that so many young men today, especially in the modern world, have no meaning to them, and where can they find that meaning?
It's hard to pinpoint like kind of how we got here in a sense
as a society.
Yeah, like as an individual man, right? Like it's hard to pinpoint like exactly where it was lost. But in that, it's pretty easy to like get your way back onto the track, right? As you were saying, like Jesus Christ, it's very simple. Like Jesus is who you want to like fill that desire that we have implanted in us. We see that desire can be filled in two ways. Obviously, the Lord wanted us to adventure into the world, right? And I think that was a lot of the Old Testament was that, you know, you see like the Israel being built and all these kings, and a lot of the world was wrapped up in God it.
Tasking them to go to the Promised Land, and that's an adventure.
It's a lot of like worldly, which isn't bad in a sense, but I think Jesus brings the trueness of that to life, and that he's bringing an eternal kingdom, something that we can fight for, that lasts authentic. Forever. It's authentic. It fulfills the desire in a heart that was before original sin, but that was then lost in original sin and clouded, right? And then we see the cloudiness in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, it's just like in the fullness is the kingdom of God. And I think that we see that Satan kind of goes into that worldly realm, right? He's the ruler of this realm, you could say, of the world. And a lot of men are lost in that. You know, he's got a good grip on people wanting to fulfill that worldly desire that we do have, but for what reason, right? It's for themselves. It's not for that eternal kingdom. You know, God put us in that desire to adventure and kind of reach out. And with that, like in Jesus, he kind of brings it back to doing it for others. And that's like kind of like the fullness of it. And I might not be putting this together perfectly, but I think we've seen a lot of young men, just to bring it back, that Satan kind of disrupts that chain, right?
Yeah.
He kind of just makes it focus on the world, and there's a goodness in the world, but it stops there, and that's when evil creeps its way in.
Specifically the material world, because I think and that's the whole notion of like when young men want to give themselves to something higher, there's no material, like there's no real material essence there. It's like it's higher than that. You know, it's not material. And so what Satan does is he wants you to focus on the material, whether that be yourself or that be some sort of object that becomes an idol for you. You know, I think that, you know, for example, like whether it be, you know, you're like a top-notch athlete and your whole world is either football, basketball, baseball, etc. And, you know, Satan, it's like those things are not bad in and of itself, but just like all things, Satan can twist them and distort them in your mind and in your mentality. So, but even those things, it's like you can go and be a professional football player or anything like that. And, you know, it's like Tom Brady's the like best example. It's like the guy has 7 Super Bowl rings, and, you know, he's even said, it's like, I wish I had more.
Yeah.
You know,
there'll always be something.
Exactly. And so the only thing, and I think that a lot of young men know but can't really explain it, is the fact of becoming a self-gift, giving to others, and it's really ironic. In giving to others, you then receive your own fulfillment.
Yeah.
It's really...
And the only way we came to realize that was through the person of Christ.
Exactly.
I think that's like the distinction that we miss, right? Like that's...
Exactly.
You hit it right in the nail with that.
Mm-hmm.
And Christ gives us that role model that we need to know and follow.
Exactly.
And look towards, and that will fulfill the desires of the heart.
Exactly. And through that, you know, his experience on the cross is one of pain and suffering. And, you know, it's like, you think Christ wanted to be on that cross? No. It's like, but he like conformed his will. He conformed his will to God's completely, and he followed him unto death.
Yeah, and you even see that on the cross. He's, my God, why have you forsaken me? If you can have this cup pass from me, not my will though, your will. Like, you know, it's kind of weird thinking like God saying that, but it just shows you that the human element of Christ was able to conform to the will of God. It's so real, and it's so interesting to see that like he was a man who did that, but he was also God. It's a role model for us, you know?
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, that's why all the more it's like the crucifix is just so astonishing, because it's the greatest human tragedy and it's God's greatest victory at the same time, you know?
And it's, you know, it's hard, you know, going back to like seeing people who are lost and they're kind of looking for this desire and stuff. Like, you know, you can kind of try to think about all the different ways that you can, but like in the end, the joy alone suffices, right? Like the happiness of God and Christ, like that's what you're looking for.
Exactly.
And we find that through suffering as men. So that's what the cross and Christ promises, is that through the suffering, through the trenches, through the ups and through the downs especially, that we will find that happiness, that joy that will fulfill the desires of our hearts. And like you only see that through suffering. And that's what faith brings us, that opportunity to see those with the lenses of suffering and have that redemptive joy that comes out of it. You know, specifically it's a Catholic teaching of redemptive suffering that we don't quite see in like the other Christian denominations.
Because you constantly have hope and that there's going to be some sort of higher good that comes out of it.
And the saints like are special, like Maximilian Kolbe, right?
Of course.
Like he traded himself in. Just think about, like, forget everything you've ever thought and just like show up to like a random group and just tell somebody like, yeah, this guy was so happy that he traded his life in for this other person and was able to die. Like he was so joyful about that. Like it just sounds off.
And not only that, he had a lot of things going for him too. Like he had founded a whole order.
He was very accomplished.
Yes. And he was probably going to be even more accomplished.
Yeah, and he just his greatest joy was sacrificing himself. Now, how is that in our lives? How can we relate to that as men, right?
So ironic.
It is so ironic, and I think the Saints is a great way, especially, you know, if you're lost and you don't really know where to go and you're looking for this happiness. Like, Christ is a great example, but sometimes we can get lost in his divinity.
Yes.
The Saints are 100% human.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And they're letting God work through them, and it's a great example for us as well. Yeah, and we see, like, to emphasize this point more, like, we see the church blossom through persecution.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, 19th, 20th century United States, prosperity, church attendance, the faith, it's kind of like eroding. You know what I mean? And then you see, like, the early church, people getting their heads cut off, thrown with lions, and it's like people are wanting to join this. Like, it's such an irony.
It is.
But there's such a truth there that's a mystery, but also we have to try to figure it out.
And that's something that's kind of a theme that God kind of runs with. You know, there's a theme in specifically in Augustine's Confessions that God thwarts the proud and exalts the humble. And that's exactly who Christ is, you know, because Christ was completely humbled himself completely and obeyed God to death. And to just, like, it's a mirror of, like, you know, the kind of seasons of the church, of whether it's, like, you know, whether it be the hierarchy or whoever is working within the church, you know, when the church gets too proud of itself, it starts to crumble, you know, and we can still see seeds of that now in our hierarchy today, but you know, but at the end of every day, it's like there's always a night, and right after the night, there's a dawn.
Yeah.
Every day. So.
Yeah, and I think it's persecution. You see, like, as I was saying, it's like it brings a lot of faith. But even in our time, like, we're pretty comfortable human beings, you and I. Like, we have very, I would say this is very nice lives compared to all of human history. But through Christ, we can have those little sufferings, right? Like, he wants every human to enter into the cross with him, pick up your cross and follow me. And that's not just for a specific time period. Yes, it might be harder for some, but he's not letting us shy away from it, right? Even if stuff is good, there's always going to be suffering that he wants us to enter into with him, even if it's to a less degree than offering our life. You know, we can offering our, like, physical life, you know, like dying through martyrdom, like that's the intense version of it. But there's also the little version of when you're tired doing the dishes for your wife, or
St. Therese talks about
it's almost like the little way. Yeah, it is. She's just saying, like, offering these, like, little bits of suffering, and, like, that's, like, you know, that's the message that we should keep in our times.
Exactly.
And then I think a lot of people are picking up on that. They're like, you know, life is good, but they're missing something. Like, the life doesn't bring that joy. And it's like, oh, I have all these things that should make me happy, but like, that's suffering that, like, I have.
There's no real substance to it.
No, there's no real substance. Yeah.
Because it's like everything. It's also something that's really interesting. It's like a lot more things feel more fulfilled when you achieve them through a lot of hard work than sort of when you're just given something.
Yeah. And
you know, it's the same thing of, like, the whole idea of being a self-gift, because he himself and the Trinity is self-gift, and we're made in his image. And, you know, and we say God is love, and God was the good of the other, as St. Thomas Aquinas defines it.
Yeah.
And you know that's why God is triune, because he's relational. And so why would he, when he says, you know, when we see in the Bible that God makes us in his own image, is like we bear that image of relatability with each other, as well as the fact of being a self-gift for others. All right, Joey. Well, so ending here with a few sort of comments before we sign off. Just want to kind of encapsulate everything we've said today. We've begun our journey into discovering what the masculine heart is and what exactly masculinity is in general. So I'm going to ask you today, what is the masculine heart?
Yeah. The masculine heart. I like this one. You ready for this? You ready?
Mm-hmm.
The masculine heart is the sacred heart. You like that? It's a good little 1-2 punch, right?
That's great.
Yeah, so I just came to me. I think it's perfect though, because I would always say to that, like, Jesus is, and like, what more do we see than in like the sacred heart, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the person of Jesus, it's interesting. I think what we talked about this whole podcast with a lot of the innate desires we have, won't necessarily get us to Jesus, but with the lens of Jesus, he brings light to all those desires.
Yes.
Right. So that
Absolutely.
desire for adventure, desire for success, even like he was successful.
Absolutely.
Very successful. He built
Absolutely.
a church that's like the church. It's the faith that brings us to him. He was like strong. He was tempered. He was perfect in every way, right? He knew exactly when to be loving and gentle. He knew exactly when to be stern and disciplined, right? You see all these things in the gospel, and the masculine heart truly should be conformed to the sacred heart if we want to truly, like, have that sense of what we ought to be as men.
That's beautiful, Joey. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Of course. Good to
Hope
see
to do
you.
it again, and looking forward to what you got to provide for the church and
Of course.
for us,
God willing, God willing. Well, everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in on this video and this start of our series, Discovering the Masculine Heart. My name is Brendan Murphy, and this is Leave the 99. God bless you, stay in the battle, and Godspeed. Thank you.